Hello and welcome to the Profitable Baker podcast, the show for bakers who mean business. I'm Annie Bennett, founder of the Home Baking Business Academy, and every week I'll be sharing practical lessons, mindset shifts, and inspiring stories from bakers who are building businesses they love. Because success in this industry isn't about who bakes the fanciest cakes, it's about who builds the strongest business foundations. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Profitable Baker podcast with me, Annie Bennett. This is the podcast for bakers who mean business. And before we start today's episode, just a huge thank you to all of you who have listened. We've just reached the 1,000 downloads achievement. So I'm really chuffed a bit. So thank you so much for listening. Right, let's get into today's episode. Today we are talking about positioning. Now, if you're not sure what this is, bear with me, it'll soon become clear. Now, positioning is one of those business words that can sound a bit corporate and a bit marketing heavy, but here is what you need to know. Positioning quietly affects which customers contact you, what they expect to pay, how easy they are to work with, and how exhausted or calm your business feels. Listen on, I shall explain. Many bakers don't realise they already have a position in the market. The question is whether it's one you meant to create or one that's been given to you. So what does positioning actually mean? Let's start with that. Positioning is the place that your business holds in the customer's minds. Not your logo, not your colours, not even your cakes, but it's what someone assumes about you before they've even sent an inquiry. For example, when someone sees your page, do they think, this baker looks affordable, they look reliable, or they look premium, or they look like they're still practicing? That thought, that instant impression is positioning, and it forms incredibly quickly. Customers don't analyse, they don't compare spreadsheets. Well, most of them don't. I might compare a spreadsheet or two, but most customers won't. They don't carefully evaluate each option. They glance, they feel, they decide who to contact. Two bakers can post almost identical cakes, but one can feel like the safe professional choice and the other can feel like the cheap, convenient option. That difference isn't the skill of the baker, it's positioning. Here's an example. One baker might just say, I bake cakes, versus another baker who says, I create reliable, beautifully finished celebration cakes for busy families who want everything handled smoothly. Both describe what they do, but the second one suggests organisation, trust, experience, and a certain level of pricing. Positioning isn't about exaggerating. It's about clarifying what customers can expect from you. And if you don't position yourself deliberately, something important happens. Customers will position you instead, usually based on your price, your posts, how you reply, and how confident you sound, not on your actual baking ability. So if positioning lives in the customer's mind, how do they decide where to place you? They don't see your ingredients cost. They don't know how many years you've practiced most of the time. They don't see how hard you work. Instead, what they do is they rely on signals. And there are three big signals that shape positioning for home bakers. And I'm going to tell you what they are. Signal one is the price signal. Price is one of the strongest positioning signals there is, not because customers are obsessed with money, but because price helps them understand what category you sit in. If your prices are very low, customers don't think, oh, what a bargain from a highly skilled professional. They usually think, this is probably a beginner or someone doing it casually. Low pricing signals a hobby level, practice level, or that cheap matters most. Mid-range pricing signals safe, standard, dependable. And higher pricing signals specialist, experience, and trusted. Now, this doesn't mean everyone needs to be luxury. It means your price is telling a story, whether you mean it to or not. Now, here's the tricky bit. If you underprice to get more customers, you often attract customers who are specifically looking for the cheapest option. We talked about this in the last episode. If you've not listened to episode 13, have a listen. This enforces that positioning even further. So price doesn't just affect income, it affects who shows up in your inbox. Now, signal 2 is the communication signal. The second positioning signal is how your business communicates. This includes how customers inquire, how quickly you reply, whether you have clear processes, whether information is organized, and whether wording feels confident and structured. This is where systems quietly create authority. A baker who says, "Oh, just message me whenever, we'll sort it out," feels very different from a baker who says, "Please complete the inquiry form and I'll confirm availability and pricing within 24 hours." Both can be friendly, but one feels organized, predictable, and professional, and the other feels casual, flexible, and possibly a bit chaotic. Customers don't always say this out loud, but they feel it. And the customers pay more comfortably when they feel that this baker has done this many times before. So clear communication isn't about being formal. It's about reducing uncertainty, because uncertainty lowers your perceived value. Now let's get on to signal 3, which is your offer clarity signal. The third positioning signal is how clear your offer is. If your page suggests "I do all cakes, all styles, any budget, any notice," you may think that that sounds helpful. But to customers, it can feel like you've got no specialism, no clear strength, and possibly inconsistent results. Whereas if your messaging suggests "I specialize in elegant buttercream celebration cakes," or "I create reliable children's birthday cakes designed for busy parents," suddenly you seem focused, experienced, and dependable. And specialists feel safer, not because they're the only option, but because clarity builds trust. Customers don't want to feel like their order is an experiment. They want to feel like it's something you do all the time. So when someone lands on your page, 3 things are shaping their impression almost instantly: your price, your communication style, your offer clarity. These 3 signals combine to create your positioning, not your skills or your passion, not how late you stayed up baking last weekend, just those visible signals. And the powerful thing is, all those 3 things are completely within your control. You don't need to become a different baker. You don't need to suddenly go luxury. You don't need a full rebrand. Often, positioning shifts when pricing reflects professionalism, when communication becomes clearer, and when your message becomes more specific. Small changes, but a big perception shift. Now, if you want a simple exercise after this episode, try this. A little bit of practical hands-on from Annie here. Ask yourself, what might customers currently assume about my business? What am I signaling? Am I signaling cheap, safe, premium, or is it unclear? If someone saw my page, and by page I mean either website or any of your social media content, if someone saw that for 10 seconds, what would they think you're known for? Because your positioning already exists. The only question is whether it's accidental or intentional. So if this episode has made you realize your positioning might be working against you, don't panic. This is incredibly common for home bakers. I got it completely wrong when I first started my business. But as you know, when I first started my business, I had not a Scooby-Doo about what I was doing. So, but I do now. That's why I'm doing this podcast. Most bakers don't struggle because they lack skill. The amount of skill I see in my baking community is quite phenomenal. But the struggle comes because the signals their business sends don't match the level they're actually capable of. Positioning isn't about pretending to be something you're not. It's about making the right things visible so customers can recognize your value more easily. And that is exactly the kind of work we do inside the Home Baking Business Academy membership, helping bakers move from busy and uncertain to clear, structured, and profitable. And our March program includes training on mindset and boundaries. We're looking at the difference between a hobby baker and a business owner. That's one of the sessions that we're looking at. Thank you for joining me today. And thank you again. As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, we have now reached 1,000 downloads. So let's see how quickly we can get it to 2,000, shall we? I always love a challenge. If you found this episode helpful, please do share it with someone else, another baker who might need it. That would be really good. And please do subscribe and follow whichever platform you're listening on, and give us a review. That would be even better. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time on the Profitable Baker podcast.